Hudson County View, live and uncut. I'm your host, the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour, John R. Heinis, and we're talking election results. Of course, we had a very, very big primary ballot yesterday, and some surprises and some not so much. But first of all, we have a Democratic nominee for governor and U.S. Representative Mikey Sherrill. She was the front runner since she declared in November, but a lot of people thought that this could go a few different ways. And Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop was thought to be a contender, as was Newark Mayor Ross Baraka, and it just wasn't meant to be. Sherrill won by a large plurality, and an even bigger win came on the Republican side of things with Jack Ciattarelli, a former state assemblyman who was the 2021 GOP nominee, ended up winning with just gigantic numbers throughout the state. So we're going to talk about that too. And of course, we have a new Democratic nominee for Hudson County Sheriff. That's Bayonne Mayor Jimmy Davis, who won a close but not as close as expected race. And we're also talking about these assembly races in the 31st Legislative District and the 32nd. Those second seats are too close to call, though it looks like we have a pretty good idea what's going to happen. And in the 33rd Legislative District, the state Senate and the Assembly candidates backed by State Senator Brian Stack did really well, as you would expect them to, so we're going to unpack that as well. And today, we're joined by Hudson County GOP Executive Director Pavel Sokolov, so I'm going to sit down with him in just a few moments. We'll be right back.
No one plans on heart disease, but everyone should have a plan for it. We help patients of all lifestyles and medical histories plan for healthy hearts. We offer convenient screenings without judgment, hundreds of preventive programs, and women's heart specialists. And we're the largest cardiac surgery program in New Jersey. Make plans for a healthy heart with RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together.
Consumer Carpets, 3408 Kennedy Boulevard in the Jersey City Heights, your one-stop store for residential and commercial floor treatments, carpeting, linoleum, tiles, laminates, hardwood floors, area rugs, remnants. All major brands, all in stock. Free estimates, same-day installation. Consumer Carpets, it's savings, selection, installation. Credit cards and debit cards accepted. Financing available. Consumer Carpets, price to fit your budget, installation to fit your schedule. On the net at consumercarpets.com. Consumer Carpets, Jersey City, 201-792-2712.
Panapinto Properties, Jersey City, shaping the workplace with state-of-the-art office spaces and addresses your company desires. Building residences that define your home environment, adjacent to all modes of transportation with on-site parking available. The right address, the right lease. Call 201-521-9000 or visit online at panapintodevelopment.com. Panapinto Properties, building Jersey City for everyone.
Hudson County View, live and uncut. I'm your host, John R. Heinis, and as I mentioned a few moments ago, today my guest is Hudson County GOP Executive Director Pavel Sokolov. Pavel, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me, John.
You're very welcome. So, of course, the thing that I would imagine you're most interested in at this moment, Jack Ciattarelli, just absolutely dominant, 45-point win. Obviously, he was favored with the endorsement of President Donald Trump, but I don't know if anyone saw him winning with this sort of a plurality. Last time you were here, you called it for Jack accurately, but what do you think of that?
Well, I think it's really a testament that Jack's message really resonated with the primary voter base. You understand that, yes, he was expected to win, especially going into the primary with President Trump's strong endorsement, but it goes to show that people just didn't stay home and think, oh, well, he's guided, so why bother? They wanted to go and participate in the victory itself. Here in Hudson County, Jack got over 6,000 votes. No other candidate even cleared 1,000. It just goes to show that even without a particular need to go and support your candidate primary because it was going to be a blowout regardless, people wanted to feel like they were part of the campaign, they contributed to the win, the energy was there, the momentum was there, and I think it's just a really good showing going into the November election that we have a strong, united, energized base, which I don't believe the Democrats can say the same.
Now, you remember in 2021, there was it was a much bigger primary field, and there were people that supported Hirsch Singh, there were people that supported Phil Rizzo, and they refused to vote for Jack in the general for whatever reason. And now, with this situation that we have today, Bill Spadea supporters are already saying we're just not going to vote in the general. So, I mean, how problematic do you think that'll be?
You know, we have to be empathetic. A lot of people really believe in Bill's message. Don't get me wrong, even though I support Jack, and I've always supported Jack, I still agree that, Bill resonated with a lot of people, and they need time to grieve. They poured their heart and souls, they campaigned, they made calls, and it's not the time to dunk on them for being wrong or for supporting the wrong candidate. Now is the time to bring them back into the fold. At the end of the day, we have a Democratic candidate in Cheryl who is completely antithetical to what Bill Spadea's supporters believe. They would rather support the Republican, be brought back into the fold, have a place in the not just Republican community, but the New Jersey community, and we can all win together. It behooves us, it behooves Jack to do that outreach and mend the fence, so to speak.
Okay. Well, look, I'm sure Bill will be back on the airwaves sooner than later, so the ball will ultimately be at his court, right?
Right, and I think it's a testament to his character that he makes the right decision and supports the person most closely aligned with his views. At the end of the day, it's a binary, it's red or blue, and not voting is complicitly and tacitly agreeing with your opposition. I think everyone has to dig deep in their hearts and see if they want Cheryl to be their governor and continue the 8 years of failed Murphy policy that they detest so much, or they can support Jack, who they might not agree on every issue, but with what candidate and what politician do you agree on every issue, right? Other than yourself, of course, if you're elected.
Right. So speaking of Congresswoman Cheryl, obviously she was the front runner, as I said at the top of the program, since she announced in November, and a lot of people thought she had a great chance, but to see Fulop and Baraka underperform as much as they did, I think shocked a lot of people. Not you, though. You did accurately say that Fulop had no chance, and you were right. Again.
Thank you. 2 for 2.
Yeah, you were. So you called the race, at least, up to November. But she won by over 2-1. And a lot of people are saying she's got this in the bag. What do you think?
So you have to look at it in the sense of metrics, right? Last time Jack lost by 3 points in an environment where the Democrats had over 200,000 registration lead on us. And in my personal opinion, what really killed us was the polling that completely deflated our enthusiasm. Why would you bother to go to vote in November when your candidate is down 15 points? We're in a completely different environment now, right? Jack has a unified base. He won with something like 75% of the vote as opposed to barely 48% 4 years ago. And at the same time, it's a different vibe check, right? Believe it or not, Trump has positive approvals. He's more well-liked in New Jersey than Phil Murphy is. The economy is back on track. The stock market rallied. LA is on fire again for different reasons, but consistently on fire. So the overall atmosphere shift towards the Republicans. We've continuously gained voters every month for the last 53 months. I think Jack's message just resonates with the voters. He's a CPA, he started a small business, worked his way up in politics. To Cheryl's credit, she is an amazing stock trader. For all of us in finance, the gains she makes year to year, she must have a crystal ball or something, so kudos to her. But I think regular Main Street Americans would rather have someone who built a small business and is one of our Jersey guys, as opposed to a politician who, to her credit, seems to be an amazing stock trader. But in your day-to-day life, is that really that much beneficial to you?
Well, I can't speak to the stock trading, but what I can speak to is she had a good night last night. The AP called the race at like 8:30, very early, a few minutes after Jack, but still a pretty early call with a race with 6 people. And, look, it's going to be interesting when we see what happens in Hudson County and beyond, but that's another subject. So we're going to take a quick break. Pavel, don't go anywhere. Folks, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, Jersey City. Hudson County's only monument maker, serving all faiths and cemeteries. Design, studio, and large inventory on site. Cemetery inscriptions and custom orders welcome. Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, just south of Secaucus Road. Craftsmanship that will last for all eternity. Burns Brothers, Jersey City, Albert H. Hopper, North Arlington. Visit us on the net.
Hudson County View Live and Uncut. John R. Heinis, and I'm still here with Hudson County GOP Executive Director Pavel Sokolov. So, On the local side of things, you read a lot more candidates, meaning the local GOP read a lot more candidates than they normally would. And on the Democratic side, though, you have Jimmy Davis pulling off the win against Frank Scialli for sheriff. And in the 31st, it looks like too close to call still, but Jerry Walker definitely won, the county commissioner in the 3rd district. And again, Assemblywoman Barbara McCants-D'Amato tentatively penciled in there, but
Correct.
Not sure. And then in the 32nd, it looks like Katie Brennan and Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala with Assemblywoman Jessica Ramirez having a small chance. And then in the 33rd, obviously, Senator Stack's candidates won by an enormous landslide, as expected. Yeah. So when you're looking at all that, do you think any of your candidates have a real chance in November?
So there's 2 schools of thoughts on this. In 32 and 31, it's always an uphill battle. But at the end of the day, as Republican voters, moderate voters, and conservative Democrat voters need to know that there is an opposition to the progressivist agenda. At the end of the day, if we do not run competent, strong candidates, how do we expect our voters to come to the polls if they're not being represented? I'm very proud of the 3 assembly teams we have put together and our sheriff candidate in the sense that they're all down-to-earth individuals who have real jobs, who are members of the communities. They coach baseball, they work in recreation, they're small business owners. They understand the struggles of rank and file Americans as opposed to the cadre of lawyers or property owners and developers that have dominated politics for so long. Essentially, the LD33 Democratic primary was who owns more buildings and who can put up more signs and more money, millionaire versus millionaire, as opposed to our candidates who are a building inspector and in education. At the end of the day, voters need to know that anyone can become an elected official if they have the right ideas and represent their constituents, as opposed to being beholden to special interests or political machines or having millions of dollars. We need people to know that regular people have a shot in America, that the American dream is still alive, and that if you work hard, you can achieve what you set out to achieve so that your children have a better life, as opposed to, oh, well, Brian Stack is the mayor and state senator forever, his machine will always win. We can never adopt that philosophy. That's a defeatist philosophy that many of our voters in LD33 left Cuba, the Soviet Union, exactly because they rejected those politics. And we saw President Trump overperform in LD33 last year, exactly because people are rejecting those policies.
So you're going to play hard at LD33. You think there's any chance for sheriff?
So again, Jersey City, Hoboken, they're a different ball game, right? They're not beholden to any political machine, but at the same time, the Democratic Socialists of America, the progressive, have a strong foothold. But the whole point of running a sheriff is for people to know that the Republicans believe that their safety is paramount, that their children can walk to school not being worried about being assaulted, not being worried about being robbed. In Hoboken itself, we had 4 robberies over the weekend, and nothing was done until social media reported. We need politicians who understand that a person's primary motivation is their health, their family, and their financial well-being, instead of trying to play up to the cameras that we're going to solve climate change every other day.
Fair enough. Now, Jack Ciattarelli, back to him for a moment. There's a lot of chatter behind the curtain, if you will, that President Trump may be making not only a trip to New Jersey, but Hudson County. Do you think that's in the cards?
Absolutely. Well, Bedminster is an hour away, but President Reagan came to Hudson County years ago during his landslide victory, and I think it would make sense that 2 of the largest shifts in America countywide happen in New Jersey, Passaic and Hudson County. So I think it would behoove the president to understand and show the people that we support the president and the president supports us, and together we can all make New Jersey a better, safer state.
Now, as you know, Congresswoman Cheryl has already done ads and has already traded a few barbs, not a lot, but a couple with Ciattarelli on social media, and it looks like she's going to make this a referendum on Trump. What do you think of that strategy, assuming that's where they go?
It seems to be a failing strategy. If President Trump was blown out in New Jersey last year, sure, why not? Considering he closed the gap on Harris better than a Republican has done in 2 decades, his approval ratings are positive in New Jersey. All of the macro environment situations, immigration, the stock market, things are doing well. Immigration, believe it or not, President Trump has supported. The day-to-day life, though, that the Democrats are in charge of here in Hudson County and New Jersey, property taxes, rising rates of unemployment, all of these things that the governor should be addressing, like the 20% energy rate hike that's going to come online next month, That's where the people are struggling, the Democratic policies. The federal things, it seems like people are happy.
So, what do you attribute to Cheryl doing as well as she did?
So the death of the county line, in my opinion, has been overplayed. At the end of the day, the county line was endemic of county organizations. Cheryl had strong backing from many organizations, Hudson, Essex, Middlesex, what have you. At the end of the day, the person who has the most name recognition, the most volunteers, the best message, more or less wins. Sure, there's no county line, but if you have an army of volunteers telling everyone, hey, we're all voting for Cheryl, as we saw with Brian Stack, they're going to win. Now, it's interesting to note that Baraka and Fulop combined did similarly to Cheryl's numbers, and more interestingly than that, Fulop coming in third. But I think that just goes to show that, sure, she's had a lot of support from her, core base, but unlike Chitterelli, she did not win with 75% of the vote.
Very true. Well, look, it's definitely going to be a hell of a grudge match going into November, and we're going to be talking, so best of luck, and thanks for coming in.
Thank you, John. All the best.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not done yet. We got a little more time here, so we're just going to take a quick break. Be right back.
No one plans on heart disease, but everyone should have a plan for it. We help patients of all lifestyles and medical histories plan for healthy hearts. We offer convenient screenings without judgment, hundreds of preventive programs, and women's heart specialists. And we're the largest cardiac surgery program in New Jersey. Make plans for a healthy heart with RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together.
Consumer Carpets, 3408 Kennedy Boulevard in the Jersey City Heights, your one-stop store for residential and commercial floor treatments, carpeting, linoleum, tiles, laminates, hardwood floors, area rugs, remnants, all major brands, all in stock. Free estimates, same-day installation. Consumer Carpets, it's savings, selection, installation. Credit cards and debit cards accepted. Financing available. Consumer Carpets, price to fit your budget, installation to fit your schedule. On the net at consumercarpets.com. Consumer Carpets, Jersey City, 201-792-2712.
And we're back, Hudson County View, live and uncut, John Heinis. So let's unpack some of these results. So let's first talk about what happened with the governor's race. As I just spoke to Pavel about at length, Cheryl won quite easily. Not really much of a fight despite a 6-person contest. So as we just discussed, you also had Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop, Newark Mayor Ross Baraka, and then there were guys that were way behind. That was U.S. Representative Josh Gottheimer, New Jersey Education Association President Sean Spiller, and you also had former State Senate President Steve Sweeney, who came last, and he was the only person to hang around in single digits there. So, again, it wasn't really much of a race. It was, at this moment, according to the Associated Press, with approximately 93% of the vote counted, Cheryl at 34%, Baraka's at 20.4%, and Fulop at 15.9%. So not particularly close. Really just an overwhelming victory. And Cheryl had the support of the Hudson County Democratic Organization. But as we just discussed, she had 9 other party chairs, party organizations. So she did have a lot of support across the state, and clearly it worked out for her. And, Fulop still had a watch party last night at the Zeppelin Hall Beer Garden. And the one thing of note, and we'll probably share this video later today, is that he said everyone must work together to elect the Democratic nominee. Obviously, that's Cheryl. And he said it's a tough night, but we're still going to fight for a better Jersey City and fight for a better New Jersey in November. So, definitely worth mentioning that. Unclear what's next for Fulop, but he tweeted just right before we started this program, and he basically said he's going to take some time off, so I'm going to read that to you in just a moment. So he says, obviously, last night did not work out. Sorry, just taking a second to load here. And just hang on one moment. And the way that we hope, and I just want to take a moment to express my deep appreciation and gratitude. The hardest part for me is that there's not much I'd go back and change. I felt our campaign was substantive, and basically just went on to say that he's going to take a breather. But sorry, I felt our campaign was substantive, thoughtful, and true to the kind of change we wanted to bring to New Jersey. That's what a campaign should be. I'm proud of the work we did and the way we did it. For now, I'm going to step back from social media and politics for a bit to recalibrate, focus on some things I put on the back burner. But before I do, I want to say thank you. So, obviously his term as mayor, his third term, is going to run through December 31st of this year. So we'll see what we see from Steve. And, talking the assembly races for a moment, we knew very early, as soon as we saw the early vote and vote by mail returns, that Assemblyman Gabriel Rodriguez and Larry Weinstein were going to win in the 33rd Legislative District. That was a margin of about 68% of the vote compared to about 32%, though Tony Hector did a bit better than Frank Alonso, but nonetheless, it wasn't close. And, obviously this was a nice win for State Senator and Union City Mayor Brian Stack, and it was a proxy battle between him and his political adversary, North Bergen Mayor Nick Sacco. Obviously wasn't his day or night. And, other than that, for Alonso and Hector ran on the Democrats for Change ticket that was backed by Fulop, but they tried to make it a referendum on Stack's governance. They called him corrupt and a lot of other things, but it just didn't resonate with the voters over there in North Hudson and Secaucus. So talking about the sheriff's race and another win for the HCDO, Jimmy Davis beat Frank Scialleri. It was a margin of about 54-46. That might change a little bit, but it's going to be close to a double-digit win, somewhere in that 8 to 10-point range, most likely, according to these preliminary tallies from the Hudson County Clerk's Office. And, there was a big HCDO victory party at the Chandelier, and Davis was fired up, as you would expect him to be. And he said, Hudson County has got a sheriff that's not a coward. We got a sheriff that's going to work with the people, all the people of Hudson County. Their guys just ended today. Go home, enjoy your retirement. So pretty self-explanatory. And Jerry Walker, who is going to win in the 31st Legislative District, the Hudson County Commissioner, he looked right at the camera and said, I'm happy to say this right here, Stephen Fulop, you lost. So obviously the HCDO was at good reason to celebrate on Tuesday evening. So a little bit more on that. We're just going to take one more break. We'll be right back.
Panepinto Properties, Jersey City, shaping the workplace with state-of-the-art office spaces and addresses your company desires. Building residences that define your home environment, adjacent to all modes of transportation with on-site parking available. The right address, the right lease. Call 201-521-9000 or visit online at panepintodevelopment.com. Panepinto Properties, building Jersey City for everyone.
Hudson County View live and uncut, Chad Heinis. So back to that HCDO victory party, just to recap, they had a good night. Cheryl won, Davis won, Walker won, and Weinstein and Rodriguez won. And, could have been better. At the 31st Legislative District, it looks like Assemblywoman Barbara McCann-Stamato, a Fulop's Democrat for Change slate, is going to win, but that's still up in the air. It's very close between her and her running mate, Bayonne Second Ward Councilwoman Jackie Weber, as well as with Assemblyman Will Sampson, who ran with Walker. So that one's far from settled, but it would be surprising, I would say, if McCann-Stamato lost. And then in the 32nd, no matter what happens, doesn't appear that the HCDO will have a pulse there. But they still went 4 for 3, and that's a lot better than most people were expecting. So they had a good night by anyone's measure or metric. So with that, in the 32nd, we saw Katie Brennan and Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala declare victory last night, maybe around 10:30, 11 o'clock, somewhere in that time frame. Jessica Ramirez only behind Bala by about 150 votes. She was, of course, the Assemblywoman who ran on the Democrats for Change ticket. And that's probably going to head to a recount, but again, we're waiting on the Hudson County Clerk's Office, so it's a little early to make any judgments there. But I would also say it would be surprising if those two results changed. So other than that, there's really just a very interesting election night. It's very rare that you see so many of these competitive races called by roughly 9 o'clock, 9:30 at the latest. The only one that's only 2 districts still hanging out there. Again, the 31st Legislative District, which is Bayonne, Kearny, and the south side of Jersey City, and then the 32nd, which is mostly Journal Square, the Heights, downtown Jersey City, and Hoboken. So, there's a lot of implications here. So Pavel is the outgoing mayor of Hoboken, and now he's also the Democratic Assembly-elect in the 32nd Legislative District. Again, barring some really shocking turn of events as we get the final results in there. But equally, if not more interesting, Jimmy Davis, assuming that he wins in November, will take his new oath of office on January 1st, which would trigger a special election in Bayonne. So that's going to be really interesting who the Hudson County Democratic Organization selects. Obviously, they have a lot of sway there. Obviously, Davis performed well in Bayonne, and he's a 3-term mayor himself, so whoever he endorses is obviously going to be the front runner by a wide margin. So lots of implications here. And then we can't forget in the 33rd Legislative District, Weinstein is, of course, no friend to North Bergen Mayor Nick Sacco. They ran against each other 3 times. And while Sacco bested him each time, improving his margins in each election, now he has an assembly entitled to his name, and he also has the backing of Stack. So 2027 with the North Bergen mayoral race, and also the assembly race will be a month later. That's May and June, respectively. Going to be really, really interesting, if you ask me. So with that, folks, we're going to call it a week. We'll see you next time.